I'm not sure there's ever been a rom-com like The Drama before, and I think people are probably going to hate this movie, even though I found it to be incredibly well crafted, and certainly there are some flaws. But ultimately, I found it pretty interesting, and I want to talk about why. First, the performances. Zendaya is really great here. This is the most effortless and present that I've seen her feel in a movie. This is a really lived-in, really human performance for a pretty tragic character. And then we have Robert Pattinson, and I think this might be one of his most grounded performances to date. He's so squirmy, awkward, chaotic here, given a lot of like Hugh Grant vibes, but spiraling out into this like insane anxiety. I think there's a lot to say about their meet cute in this movie. It really works, and I think the thing about this film is that it's trying to be both a psychological thriller and a romantic dramedy, and both of those lanes work for the movie. And the actual premise of the film is probably more the former than the latter, because it's built around one uncomfortable idea, which is how we judge people for their worst thoughts versus their actual actions. Not gonna lie, I was worried at first because I thought this might be some kind of like contrarian cancel culture has gone too far thing, especially considering this director, or are we committing people of thought crimes? But thankfully it's not quite that. It actually flips that idea back onto the audience, where the movie kind of gets experimental with its filmmaking and its commentary, where it's trying to provoke the audience to think about how Americans live in a culture that's shaped by violence, anxiety, pressure, and then it turns around and judges people who are victim to that culture without offering any real support for those people. So the movie takes a rom-com cliched genre and throws this wild conceit in the middle of it, and then stirs up some tension by putting up a mirror to the audience and their judgment. And the fact that this movie is doing all of that in this genre, to me, is really impressive, and I think it only really works because the romance and the comedy were so well performed and realized by Zendaya and Pattinson. And don't get me wrong, this movie's not perfect. It drags in its pacing. Some of the side characters don't really work all that well. It's kind of a feel-bad ending, and the commentary is sometimes flawed, sometimes a little bit forceful, and then sometimes thoughtful. So it's a little bit of a mess in moments, and there are things not to like. But ultimately, I think people are going to be very divided on this movie, so we're going to have to do a spoiler video on it tomorrow.